Yo, welcome back to a new video. So today, this is a bit of a different video. It's not different in terms of like what I usually talk about. It's about Fear the Walking Dead. It's unusual what I'm going to talk about. But I wanted to talk about the negatives of the Erickson era. I think that I've talked about the positives and the negatives of rebooted Fear. I have again and again talked about the positives of seasons 1 to 3, but I've never really talked about the negatives. And the reason why is because there isn't really any major issues in my eyes that I seriously can find. Other people say, and look within myself, that actually makes it bad. Like, it's not bad. The Erickson era has no major flaws that I would necessarily warn people about or say, like, oh, don't watch it, it's not good. So, why am I doing this? Well, there is one thing I want to mention that isn't a huge problem, and I will constantly defend it and put it in a good light. But there's one thing about season 2 that I do believe is a bit of a iffy thing. But besides that, there is no major issue in my eyes that the Erickson era has. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about this first thing, and then I'm going to talk about some other small, silly little points that other people have said about Fear, and basically just say how ridiculous they are because some people just like to hate it for the sake of hating stuff, and we don't want that. So my major thing is that season 2 is slow paced. Season 1 is quite short, and I feel like the pacing's alright. And I think season 3 is great. It's all action packed. You do have like a couple episodes thrown in there that are a little bit slower, like Daniel's episode, but it works well. It's a nice episode. Season 3 is paced well too. They're both paced nice, season 1 and 3. Season 2 is quite slow consistently, and this is the only thing that I would say is a problem. But then again, it's not a problem. It's not going to stop me from watching season 2. It's just something that I know, like, it's going to be a bit slower, because at the start of season 2 you've got like the anthology where each different episode has a different kind of thing going on, a different island, a different place where the boat's going. And then in the middle, you kind of get a little bit of a transition period getting on to Mexico and what we do from there, and everyone being split up. And at the very end, we have moments with Travis and Chris, especially their episodes. I think there's 2 episodes they have where it's just them two, maybe 1 full episode. But we have their episodes that are also slow. So there definitely is like not the quickest paced season all throughout season 2, but I don't think it's bad. But this, I just want to mention it because I do believe that this is a big criticism, and I did a poll, and season 2 is the least liked season, and I believe that the pacing of season 2 is a big reason why. I feel like the things that happened to make it slow, and the fact that it was just quite slow, is why people would honestly prefer season 1 and 3 over season 2. I actually think season 2 is better than season 1, but I am completely understanding that it is quite slow, and that is a reason why you would dislike it. But like I say, I personally really enjoy it, and I wouldn't ever say like, oh, don't watch season 2, or don't watch it because it's slow paced. Like, I think it's a great load of fun. And I think that it's kind of like a thing where if we had continued on with Erickson's Fear, I think season 2 would have looked back and we would have appreciated it more than what we do now. I feel like season 2 took a lot of time to develop characters. Like, Nick was very, very important in season 2. In the middle, his episode Grotesque, for say, was just him exploring, and it was a whole episode learning like what Nick does, like what makes Nick tick, what's he thinking, what's he doing. The anthology was proving and showing that how different people are reacting and dealing with the apocalypse. And the end with Travis and Chris, theoretically, say that Cliff Curtis had not gone to film Avatar, we would have seen Cliff Curtis more, Travis more, and maybe we would have looked back and seen his kind of interactions with Chris in season 2, and it could have been more important in the later seasons, and we could have appreciated season 2 more. However, none of that happened. Frank Delane left, Cliff Curtis left, and the show changed. So I feel like that's why season 2 doesn't seem as good, because the effects of it into later on don't really seem as apparent, and season 2 is just a bit like a little bit not really too much going on at some certain points. But all in all, that is my only thing that I would say is a bit iffy about the Erickson era. But like I've said, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because it was still loads of fun, and season 2's a great season. By no means is it bad. It might just be maybe the worst Erickson season. But just because something's worst does not mean that it's bad at all. So for these next points, I'm just kind of going to quickfire them. I've got about 3 or 4 of them or something, and I'm just going to kind of go through them. They're all throughout the different seasons, and these are things that I've heard people mention and criticize about Fear, and I disagree with them, but I want to mention them because the video is about things that make Fear bad, or what's bad about the Erickson era. So first of all, the time jump in season 1, a lot of people don't like that, and I don't like it. I will say that it's not good, and it would have been better without one, but it's not a terrible thing. It doesn't make season 1 bad. Season 1 was a good season. It already had enough of itself, like content, enough good content to stand upon. This time jump didn't make season 1 terrible. It didn't make Fear the Walking Dead terrible, and season 1 still showed a lot about what happened before the apocalypse, or during the beginning of the apocalypse, than any of the Walking Dead universe has done before. And so therefore, I just have to say that this is one of these silly little points that I just don't understand why people have to take this way out of proportion. So in season 2's perspective, besides what I already mentioned, people don't like Celia. They think that Celia is awful, and I can't agree with that. Like, look, Celia wasn't the most interesting person. She wasn't like an amazing villain. But Celia was just meant to be like another little obstacle. She was just kind of the catalyst, or like the pinpoint for like, we were going to go to this island, Celia's going to be there, and then Celia's going to get into Nick's head. That's how we're all going to split up. Celia was never meant to be Herschel. And it really annoys me when people say that Celia was like a rip-off Herschel, because the only same thing about them two, like, is the fact that they believe that walkers aren't fully dead. But even in that belief, they're slightly different. And the development on the show, how long they stay on the show, their gender, literally everything else about them is different. And I get that Celia wasn't amazing, but for what she was there for, to get inside Nick's head a little bit, rattle him up, create tension with Strand, you know, be the owner of wherever this organisation is, and to prove that people actually do believe that walkers are still human or not fully dead. She was needed. She was absolutely needed. And like, just because Herschel's Herschel does not mean that you can never have anyone that believes that walkers aren't fully dead. This is the start of the apocalypse. Like, it would actually be more weird. It'd be weirder if we didn't see someone that thought this way, and people would just seem to rip into season 2 because of it and say like, oh, Celia's terrible, like, what a waste of space, like, she's just trying to be Herschel, like, nothing interesting and new. Like, that's absolutely false. Celia served a different purpose and brought a different perspective into the situation of walkers not being fully dead or kind of being humans. So this last point is season 3. So I talked about, you know, people's problems with season 1. I've talked about people's problems with season 2 and my own problem. And obviously, these little points are not intended to be huge major points. These are like little things. But the Erickson era is relatively tight-knit, that there's not like any major things. I mean, look, there might be plot holes, a little bit, stuff like that, but it's nothing major ridiculous. Nothing that, like, the Fear fan that I am, I couldn't tell you a plot hole that's extremely obvious, in my eyes anyway, though I'm not really the best at spotting plot holes, like, in anything, but there you are. Like, I haven't read into any major ones, and these are just supposed to be little points, but this next one is, like, quite heavy, and it's about season 3, as I said. And people don't like Madison, and that is absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with people not liking Madison. I'm not gonna, like, say that, oh, I love Madison, so you all should. Like, no, it's not how it works. Like, you like who you like, and that's your opinion. That's not for me to say. But it's like saying that, like, oh, Rick Grimes is terrible. He's a sheriff, and he's a leader, and I hate him so much. You know, Madison has a tunnel vision to help who she likes, and, like, her family, her friends, and herself, and no one else. You know, Madison makes all these stupid decisions and I hate her. That's fine, but everyone tears Fear down because of this. Like, season 3. Like, season 3 is terrible because the decisions Madison makes are awful. Like, they're not awful. Like, that's who Madison is. Madison's the start of season 3. That was her season. Like, season 1 and 2 were her season, but season 3 was, like, her season. And it's ridiculous that people make such a big deal over the things that Madison did. Like, Rick did some good things, okay, but I don't get mad at Rick because, oh, Rick's a good guy, or Rick didn't turn into Negan. Like, so why? It's not fair that you get mad at Madison, because Madison is a little bit of a Negan without the charisma, but kind of more ruthless in some way. Not really, but kind of. I don't know. Madison and Negan are different, so I'm not comparing them. But yeah, that's basically my third thing. Like, people just hating season 3 and all that because of the decisions Madison makes. Madison's a great character. She absolutely is. And if you don't like her opinions, that's absolutely fine. There are other characters in season 3. And maybe you just have to deal with it and have to go, well, Madison's making these decisions. I like this character. Do I like their decisions? You know, Madison is the character she is. Rick Grimes is the character he is. They are done to who they are. It's not like Madison in season 7 or 8. You know, I think Madison was okay in season 8, but I feel like she could have been way cooler if it was the same Madison written in season 3. Like, it's a version of Madison in season 8. You know, Rick Grimes stayed pretty consistent in Rick Grimes. And that's it, basically. People just think that Fear is awful because Madison is awful and no one likes her. So yeah, I really did not like making this video. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I didn't really know what else to talk about, and I've thought about this a lot, so I just wanted to talk about it. But like, I just don't feel like I really had anything to say because like, there's nothing inherently bad about it in my eyes, and like, maybe I could have done some more research in what other people properly thought it was like major criticisms, but I've read a lot of them. I did a video talking about the reviews of season 1 and thought that they were all like, I could see the points of some of them, but I thought that they were all in some respect not dead true. They were kind of someone's opinion, but an opinion that we probably don't all share, especially fans of Fear. So to actually like find proper things that were bad, I would only say season 2 being a little bit slow paced is the only major problem, and even then it's not a major problem and it's still very much enjoyable. And then I just went through some nitpicks. I can do more nitpicks. I feel like that would be fun to really talk about like individual things that people have problems with, like with the Erickson era, because there are a couple things. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will try to stop talking about the bad era of Erickson, because really, it is pretty perfect, as it should be.